Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Lock Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined always by Trevor, and today we're going to be talking a lot about Dglow, and there's a lot of talking points that Dglow brought up. So right off the bat, I'm going to just run through the MPO results. I'll let you run through the FPO results, and then we'll get into some storylines and some talking points that, you know, might be a little controversial at times, but that's what you're here for.
Yeah, we're no strangers to that at this point.
So the Dglow results, we had Eagle taking it down by one stroke with a 33 under par, and then tied for second, we had Chris Dickerson and Ricky Wysocki both at 32 under to round out the top three.
Yeah, for the on the women's side, we had Paige Pierce taking it down. Not a huge surprise there, but she finished at 16 under. And then we had Ellen, is it Wideboom or Widboom?
I think it's Widboom.
Widboom. Player I haven't really heard of much. Seen her play some good golf this weekend. She finished 6 back of Paige, 10 under. And then Sarah Hokum came in at third, tie with Jessica Weiss. They were both at 6 under par. So not super close, but relatively competitive. Yeah,
and Ellen Widboom's a name I've heard before quite a few times, but I feel like she hasn't been a consistent like top player on tour. So it is cool to see her finishing up there at a pretty big event. Before we get into some other storylines and talking points that these results show us, wanted to really quick look at our dark horse picks.
Yeah.
Because last weekend we introduced that. This weekend, we probably won't have it for this weekend, but next weekend at Idlewild, we'll bring it back. Mm-hmm. This weekend, there's not a lot of tournaments really going on. I know Calvin and Chris and a few others are playing one event, but other than that, I didn't really see too much going on the schedule. So we won't have a dark horse picks for this upcoming weekend, but for Idlewild we will. But my dark horse pick was Philip Delaunier. I'm going to call him Phil because, again, he messaged me and was like stoked that I had picked him and was like telling me good pick and like gassing it up, but never told me if I pronounced his name right. So I'm still here. I'm still here hoping that Delaunier is how you pronounce the last name, but no, I know I got Phil right. So yeah, I had Phil. You picked.
And my boy Justin Rozak.
Yeah. I was about to say someone close to your heart. Someone close to home.
He is close to my heart.
And unfortunately, he let you down a little bit.
Well, he did and he didn't. Like, we really lucked out with these picks in a sense. I mean, I know Justin's, and I know Justin's a good golfer. Your pick was a little more random, even though you kind of knew of this guy.
No, it wasn't random. I did my research.
Okay, well, whatever. He played some good golf lately. You knew that much.
I knew that much.
But either way, there were guys like who were like local Michigan guys that we could have picked that were kind of lower rated, and they did not play well. Both the guys we picked played really good golf. Better than we expected, I think.
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, what, 12 down and 10 down? Is that what they finished at?
13 and 10.
Or 13 and 10?
Phil was 13 under and Justin was 10
and
under.
And it was neck and neck. They kind of were switching back and forth in the standings the whole event. And
it was pretty exciting, not going to lie.
It was a cool little thing to like kind of root on the guys that you might not normally pay attention to.
Yeah, and part of me wants to just end the dark horse section forever because I don't think we'll ever do this good again.
Probably not.
Yeah, Phil, I knew of him. I'd been following him for a while, but then I saw recently that he had posted like top 20 at Silver Series and a few other just like higher up finishes, especially considering like his rating and stuff with, you know, he wasn't supposed to be finishing high. And so I had noticed, you know, a lesser known player finishing high, you kind of catch notice of that. And that's why I picked him because I was like, he's on a hot streak.
It paid off for you.
He continued the hot streak. So I think in the future, our rule should be a dark horse pick can't be someone you already picked.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For this season.
Well, sure. Yeah, you want to pick new people.
Yeah, that way we're always
learning some new players,
picking some new people, and it'll get harder and harder on us because I know like Justin's going to tour until school starts, and I'm sure Phil's doing the same.
I mean, normally my strategy I think is going to be to go with local guys that I know, even if they're maybe not super known, they've played the course, you know, quite a few times.
That is a pretty valid strategy. One local guy, I actually, because our rating cap for it had to be below 980. Mm-hmm. And so one guy that came to my mind, but I think he's above 980. He's 1,000 rated now. So was Willie Prince, because last year, I don't know if you remember him, he kind of tore up last year. Or it might have been 2018.
I recognize the name.
I think it was actually 2018 now that I'm talking about it. I believe it was the year that Paul shot 18 under. He was the one who was kind of like behind Paul. He had shot like 11 under and 12 under.
Right.
And was kind of tearing it up. So when we first said dark horse pick, I'm like, oh, that's someone no one will really remember. But he is a little too high rated. And He didn't play great this weekend. I believe he ended up in mid-60s. Yeah, there he is, 62nd. So, Justin, I believe, came in 44th, and Phil came in 37th.
They both cashed, which, I mean, that's a whole nother subject for later. But
we'll get to that in a second here.
But I do agree that, like, it'll be... I don't know if we'll ever pick such good picks again that they were that close and both played really well, but we'll try our best.
I mean, there was one player. I'm standing corrected. There was only one player that beat Phil and Justin that was below 980, and that was Jacob Urbanheimer.
Wow, so we almost had perfect picks.
Yeah, we almost had it.
It's impressive.
Because there's
a shot in the dark.
I mean, well, first off, Justin's 980. I'm just now noticing that.
Yeah.
You said 980 and below, I guess.
We don't care about ratings, remember?
That we don't. We're not. That's why we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about the average ratings. Someone in the comments called us out, and it was a very valid point because we had talked about why are we emphasizing ratings for pros?
Yeah.
And we talked about that multiple times, and yet every round, every tournament, we would come in and we'd be like, "Oh, Eagle won this event, averaging 1064."
I don't get tempted to talk about ratings except for when people that shoot way above theirs, they're unknown players. That's when it catches me up a little bit.
But my thing is with that, what's a better storyline? Because I feel like if I look at Phil, right, my dark horse pick, and I just put the number 963 next to his name, then that automatically makes us judge him as a player to a certain extent. Versus saying he just came in top 20 at Silver Series, he just came in 37th here. He's an up-and-coming player.
Yeah.
As soon as I put 963, you're saying, oh, he's playing way above what he should be playing.
Yeah.
And it almost degrades these players to a certain degree because we're saying as just people looking in, not just a podcast, not as just disc golf fans that look at this and see, Andrew Martin at 997. I thought he said 979. I'm dyslexic. Andrew Kallick at 988 coming in 22nd. We're immediately saying, oh, well,
yeah,
that was a fluke.
It's a matter of it. It's because it's too convenient of a stat because literally if you look at the results page, it's right next. Their rating is right next to their score. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If it were easier to consume detailed, stat, I mean, it is pretty easy. You just click on their name, but a lot of people won't do that. That's why I think it's just a little too convenient.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that's where.
But you're right.
If we want to see that change.
We
got to do it, and so that's
rating
why
is just becoming a taboo word on this podcast.
We're gonna, whoever called us out. I should have pulled it up before the podcast. Whoever called us out on being a little bit of hypocrites on that, that was a valid point. So here we are. Welcome to the Rating Free Podcast.
No ratings.
We're changing our name from Grip Locked to Ratings Free.
Just paint it on the wall.
No, but I think that the storylines will become stronger if you ignore ratings.
That's right. We just got to do our homework.
Personally, that's what I think. Because I think, now we can look at Justin as a potential breakout player instead of a 980 rated player playing above his rating.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more interesting.
I do want to go into some surprise finishes.
There were a handful of them.
Yeah, there were a handful. Actually, mainly on the women's side, it looks like here.
Yeah.
The first one that I brought up, and I need to pull up the UDisc stat, was Katrina Allen losing by 12. And not only losing by 12, but coming in 6th place there. And why this is surprising to me, I know she struggled with putting. Her putt actually, I watched a little bit of coverage, so I'm interested when I pull this up to see kind of what we're looking at. But her putt during coverage actually looked pretty decent.
I saw her make a few good ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to say that you would look at the toboggan course and I think your instinct would be like, oh, it's a thrower's course. But it's kind of a two-headed argument because you could say it's a thrower's course because there's a lot of difficult long par threes where you got to throw long shots to get close to the basket. But on the other side of that, you'd say, well, it's a putter's course because you're not going to get super close to the basket.
Yeah.
If you're the type of guy or girl who is throwing your game depends on throwing shots to 15 feet, you're not getting that at the toboggan course. You're gonna have to make long putts.
Yeah.
So I think honestly it's more of a putter's course.
So
which can be seen with one of the men's results we're about to bring up.
I have to go back on what I said about her putting well.
Wasn't good.
She was the 4th to last.
Yeah.
With 43% Circle 1X putting,
she can 16%
Circle 2 putting.
Which who knows what that means?
Yeah, I mean she had 67% Circle 2 in regulation, so a lot of the hole she had to look at it from Circle 2. Circle 1X putting though, leading the charge there was Missy Gannon. which I think is a big part of the reason she finished in 8th. So she wasn't giving herself a lot of chances for birdie, but whenever she was inside the circle, she was converting on pretty much all of them. And I think that's the reason we've seen her kind of break onto the scene as of late is, she's putting pretty phenomenally.
The players that do the easy things right every time, like C1X putting, you should be making them every time pretty much. So, you do the little things right and you'll start to, your game, you'll shed strokes without really even noticing it.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to bring up now that I'm looking at these stats, because this wasn't something I was about to talk about, but Paige won by 6 strokes.
Mm-hmm.
But she is pretty much middle of the pack when it comes to Circle 1X putting at only 69%. Which, now, one thing I do want to talk about that I'm a little bit, I don't want to say confused, but it makes judging stats hard is the Circle 1X. The X is because they cut out the tap ends.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at putting, it's good to like judge a player's putting performance because you don't want the little like tap ends to be counting towards it.
Sure.
But when you're looking at it in comparison to them finishing, it doesn't really show you that much because in theory, Paige is 69%. She still won by 6. So she could have had a lot of tap in pars and tap in birdies that aren't factored into this. And then she's missing, she's hitting 7 out of 10 birdie putts. From 30 feet or something.
The circle system in general can be a bit misleading. I think it's almost more misleading once you get to circle 2 because everything outside, everything in like circle 2, like there's such a big,
it's a huge range.
It's a huge range.
You're like 33 to 60 some feet.
Yeah, I think it was Kevin Jones who had like a really high percentage of circle 2 putting in one of the rounds, and it's like, was he making putts just into circle 2 or way out in town?
Yeah,
I think. The circle system, I get it. It makes sense. It's kind of been disc golf's thing. The circle 2 and circle 1X is relatively new to the game. But I think a more accurate way to at least judge a putting performance is just go by feet, This feet,
It's just hard to get the percentage off of that. Because, what you just brought up is a great point, though, because if we look at... So I went over to the MPO, and for the whole tournament, circle 2 putting percentage, Kevin Jones leads the field at 53% at this tournament.
Yeah.
So that's saying half the putts he had inside circle 2 he made.
Well, I just want to see, 5 to 10 feet, 10 to 15 feet, 15 to 20. That's what I want.
Oh, you're saying so those percentages are broken down a little more. Yeah.
So they're just broken down. And
I would like that because 53%, and then even James Comrade at 52%, Chris Dickerson at 46%. Like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players above 40% circle 2 putting.
Yeah. And who knows what that means?
Yeah, I watched the coverage. There was some insanely impressive putts, but there was also a lot of putts where they were like right at 35.
Well, I've even heard Sexton's talked about in a commentary before how he would love getting a putt that's just in a circle 2 because he knows he can steal a circle 2 putt on his stats. Really shouldn't have that.
Yeah, no,
you shouldn't have players thinking that way.
Now, one thing, and I've wondered this for a while, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, but when I look at stats, a question that always comes to my mind. So MPO and FPO, I understand differences in the game. Mm-hmm. But the one difference that I don't get is circle 1X putting. So Kyle Klein led the MPO field with 96%. And to get outside of 90%, you have to go, it looks like almost 15 players deep. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, obviously the FPO field's a lot smaller, but the FPO leader is 85%. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players deep, we're outside of 80%. To get outside of 80% on the MPO, we got to go down about 30 to 40% into the field, somewhere in there, like almost 50-some players are 80% or better. What is that disconnect, or is there one, as to why we don't see the FPO hitting putts at 96%?
It's tough to say. I mean, I think there's something to be said for the fact that the women's game is still maturing and players are still getting better. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Obviously, you can see it within the field size; it's way smaller.
Yeah.
So there's a lot less sample size, but I think that's really all it is. That obviously that's a part of the game that the women and the men will probably be on equal terms with.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason they shouldn't be. So I think as they continue, that field continues to strengthen, which it has been, and especially they're still missing a lot of their good players that are in Europe. You got to think of that too. So I think that'll come with time.
Yeah, when I'm looking at it, I'm just looking at it as a place. If I was an FPO player and I'm seeing Paige Pierce win an event with 70% circle one putting, I'm saying to myself, like, holy cow, there's the weakness, because Paige is a great putter.
Yeah.
But
the best,
when you look at statistics, 70% circle one, and she won the tournament. So I'm looking at it as like, hey, out of every 10 putts, I could be gaining 2 strokes on Paige. Every 10 putts we have inside the circle, I'm gaining 2 strokes on her.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not good math, because how many throws it take me to get to that circle.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that is something that, it's going to just take a few players, I think, to be pushing consistently 90% to push the rest of the field up.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something that, like, 85%, that's higher than we see at a lot of events. So it is getting better with players like Missy Gannon. I know Lisa Fakis is always up there. Heather Young's always up there. Haley King with 82%. There's a lot of players now that are pushing the boundaries, getting closer and closer to this, like, tying the MPO top of the field.
Yeah.
And the sample size is a great point there. When we're looking at a field with 143 men versus a field of 32 women, there's going to be obviously more players with more chances to get up there. But that's just something I've always been curious with is, there's arguments to be made circle to and out of why the game's going to be different. But once you're inside the circle, I mean, we're throwing a disc at a basket 30 feet and closer. So to me, I think if I'm an FPO player, it's not necessarily a practice more, because I don't want to say that none of them are practicing. They obviously are putting in the work because they're filthy players. But it's maybe a technique type of thing. Maybe it's just figuring out what works best for me, because maybe Paul's putt doesn't work for me, and maybe Ricky's putt does, or maybe it's I need to be a Simon putter, or whatever works. Or maybe you like Haley King and you're like, I don't want to be anyone but Haley King. And maybe that's that.
That's the quote.
But I just think that's something that I've always found interesting every time I pull up UDisc stats is, is there something that is a disconnect when we get inside the circle? But that wasn't really one of the surprise finishes. That was just as I was looking at stats, I just thought it was interesting.
It is.
So another surprise finish we had here was Lisa Fakis. So we just brought her up, finishing in 17th place.
Yeah.
So why this is a surprise is mainly because last weekend we just saw her playing great golf and beating Paige. Or was it last weekend, or was it just the last big tournament? I think it was last weekend.
I believe it was.
So either way, the last tournament they were both at, we see Lisa taking down Paige. And now in this tournament, we see Lisa losing to Paige by 17 strokes. Now, probably a big part of that was the course. The course was long, which is going to play to Paige's advantage. I think that's why she's able to beat the field by 6 strokes, only putting 70% inside the circle, and stuff like that. But at the same time, Lisa's down at 11th place, which I don't think is true at all to her skill level. So maybe it's just something struggling with this style of course, or...
Yeah, momentum is kind of curious in disc golf to kind of see how momentum works event to event. Obviously, we've seen players go on big runs, but... Paul and Ricky have had some really big runs in certain years, but I'm not even sure that was necessarily attributed to momentum as far as they were just the best players in the game at that point.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I see it as much in disc golf where a player who, maybe is a top 10 guy, but isn't, one of the best at the time. I don't really see that where they rattle off a bunch of really good finishes and they just kind of carry momentum. I don't know. I feel like disc golf, your game can fluctuate so quickly. It can take one practice round for your game to turn off and on. And I think that might be a cause for that, especially putting. Putting in disc golf is so unique, and there's so many like different levers in your body that are controlling that putt that, the difference between you just not missing and just missing everything is so subtle. I would know, you would know, that like, I think that has to do with it. That like momentum, I guess confidence, like you can gain confidence from like rattling off good finishes, but I don't know, I just don't see it as much, and it surprises me.
Yeah, I think it looks like the biggest thing here that kind of hindered Lisa was her circle one in regulation. She was only 15%, which is about middle of the road. But with how good of a putter she is, I think what was happening previously was she was giving herself a lot of looks and then able to convert on those looks, like we just talked about, kind of capitalizing on circle one putting.
Yeah.
Whereas in this event...
Hitting circle one in this event is tough.
Yeah, and so in this event, she was only 7% circle two putting, although she was 33% circle 2 in regulation, only converting on 7% of those, and then 15%. So, her birdie rate just was going to be a lot lower here.
Yeah.
So that's probably what it contributed to, but I just thought that was a interesting thing as we were looking over the stats to see her topple Paige, which we had talked about the week before, that we thought it was just going to take a player to topple Paige, and hopefully that would kind of flip a switch to where they could continuously do it. And to see a player finally do that and then struggle the next weekend just kind of raises some questions as to what was going on. And to me, I just feel like it probably wasn't her course, if I was being honest.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about her game, but I know this course pretty well, and you've got to be throwing long. You got to be throwing hard.
It's different than a lot of courses. I feel like they're playing the elevation and length. I mean, because it's a lot of times they're stepping up to a par 3 and it's 400 plus feet. It's because of the downhill. That's why they're able to reach it. But it's very unique, and there's a lot of people who did not adjust well to it at all.
And I mean, while we're talking about this course and it being a Crushers course, another big surprise here was...
so we thought.
Well, we thought it was a Crushers course. Another big surprise here was Simon Lizotte in 37th place.
Yeah.
This is the type of event that you would expect, like him and Eagle, which Eagle was up there, but I feel like his and Eagle's game's pretty similar. So to see one winning the event...
Eagle's a much better putter.
Yes.
I think that's where the difference is.
Well, let's actually look at these stats and see the exact distance.
Because Simon's putting, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier, like I think this course you just can't rely on having a lot of circle 1 putts. You got to make longer putts. Eagle's a phenomenal putter from distance.
Eagle definitely is. Simon hit 78% of his putts, which I feel like...
In circle 1 or total?
Circle 1X. 25% circle 2.
Not bad.
It looks like the biggest
just
thing...
OB strokes probably then.
The biggest thing just looking at his stats was circle 1 in regulation was only 40%, which leading the field was 56% with Chris Dickerson.
Yeah, and this was his first time to this course.
That's also true.
So, I mean, I think it's probably one that he obviously had some practice rounds, but, when you're new to it, it's like
when you're coming into a course that other players have been at for years. But I believe this was Eagle's first time to this course as well.
I think so, yeah. So really impressive.
So, I mean, if the difference in putting between Eagle and Simon, 93% to 80%, which let me find Simon again. He's a little far down. Yeah, so 80% and 93%. So out of every 10 putts, Eagles only cashing one more. But in the circle 2 putting, 45% to 7%. That's probably where, or 25%, excuse me, circle 2 putting. That's probably a decent portion of it. I just thought that was an interesting thing because I feel like, and I could be wrong here, that when we see Eagle do well in an event, you can normally expect Simon to be doing pretty well at the same event.
Yeah, I think that does seem to be a pattern.
Or vice versa. If Simon's winning, I feel like it was even Memorial. They were both battling it out like a year ago or something like that. Mm-hmm. It just seems that their game is similar, the Crush Boys, that if one's doing good, the other is normally doing good. In this event, that just wasn't the case.
Yeah. That does typically happen. I was really surprised to see him not play well. I expected a good finish from him.
And continuing in what we've kind of been seeing, this pattern throughout the restart of the season, is Ricky seems to be back.
He does.
Which, to me, is pretty exciting.
Yeah,
because
it's good. I missed it.
I always kind of glorify the past a little bit. And like when I'm like, man, that phrase, you don't know the good old days until you're out of them.
Yeah, sure.
And so like to me, the good old days of my disc golf watching experience is the Paul and Ricky days. Of just Paul and Ricky week in and week out.
Just battling, yeah.
You're watching the Paul and Ricky show, and then you're watching everyone else below him. And so to see Ricky back up top, we'll talk about Paul here in a second. He struggled at this event. But to see Ricky back up top pretty consistently, I believe it has been 3 or 4 events now. That was the 3rd event that he's either won or come in second at.
Yeah.
And the only blip in the last 5 events is 17th at the Preserve. He went 4th at the DDO, 17th at the Preserve, then went first, second.
Yeah, he seems to be finding his game, and I think he's mentioned, he's obviously getting his health back.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, he's such a natural player that I don't think, even if he missed out on some practice, I don't think that's going to affect him very much. I think the biggest thing is he's finding his putt again.
Yeah.
I mean, he made an absolute bomb. If everybody saw that in the coverage, he made, I think it was over 100 feet.
He made some terrifying putts.
Yeah, he made some big putts. But I think that was like one of the things about him. I mean, obviously, his backhand and forehand, his placement is so good, and this is kind of a placement course. And then, when he was in his heyday, he just didn't miss.
Yeah, that was the thing with
You
Rick.
could see the basket. He was making it.
Exactly. And that was something that always made coverage so exciting is it didn't matter what type of course they were playing. It didn't matter anything. And it really, when Ricky and Paul were both at the top of their game at the same time, it was the same for both players. And I think that's what was so exciting. Even if you go back to 2014 Worlds, that playoff,
Yeah.
they both had so much ice in their veins, hitting like 30 footers with the world title on the line, hole after hole after hole.
Yeah.
But both of them, when they were in their heyday, and especially Ricky, it seemed like he was back to this now, where if they were inside like 50 or 60 and you're watching coverage, even 70, you knew it was at least going to scare the chains.
Yeah.
And that was just so exciting. And that was something that, we seen Paul was getting back to there this year. He had this one little blip, but I felt like this season, Paul's putting's been as good as it's been in a long time.
Sure, yeah.
And so that was exciting to watch, but it's more exciting when there's two players and when there's two players on the card. And so I feel like this tournament, we had a lot of players doing that. Kevin Jones hit some big putts.
Yeah.
Conrad.
When I look at this leaderboard, this is one of the best looking leaderboards I've seen in disc golf in a little bit because, not only, you could say, the preserve was like great or whatever, but this is a challenging course, a course where we saw the number one ranked player in the world come in 10th. And if you look at that top 10, we have like all the big names.
Yeah.
Right. You got Eagle, you got, Ricky, Kevin Jones, James Conrad, Heimberg, Nico, like all these big names. And they're all like in contention. There was so many guys in contention. It was such a great, like, I couldn't even believe it. Going into the final day, I was like, wow, there's like a lot of guys that could win it. I feel like disc golf, a lot of times I end up, by the time I get to the final round coverage, it's like, okay, there's 2 guys that have a shot today.
Yeah.
But in this case, there's like 5 guys that have a shot.
Well, I think one thing that's interesting is the preserve, for some reason, because it doesn't make sense to me, but for some reason, the preserve, I didn't like the finish.
Yeah.
I love the excitement of it, but we had the whole podcast on the par, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at this event, Eagle won averaging 11 under.
Which I think is a good number for like, it's still exciting. They're making a lot of birdies, but they're not making a mockery of the course. I think 10 under in disc golf looks pretty good right now. I don't need to see guys struggling to shoot a couple under par, and I don't want to see guys shooting, anywhere like 13, 14, 15 down.
Yeah.
But 10 under, around 10 under looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
it's competitive and there's room on either side.
That's what, a few strokes off of what the preserve was playing, right? The preserve was like, I'm gonna find Nico. I'm gonna pull up what he averaged.
I feel like 10 down is good because if guys are like shooting, like the top guys are shooting around 10 down, there's room on both sides of that. Like you could shoot a few strokes better and make up ground, or you could shoot a few worse and lose ground. Like,
so the preserve, Nico won with a 41 under through 3 rounds, and then here we have Eagle winning with a 33. So 8 strokes.
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty big over 3 rounds.
It's a pretty big difference.
Okay,
yeah.
So maybe that's why I enjoyed it more. I don't know, but regardless, one question that I brought up to you that goes right in with what we're talking about here is with the preserve and now with this on Pro Tour scale. There's been other events here and there in between, but on a Pro Tour scale, in the current state of disc golf, is it more exciting when Paul's not dominating?
Yeah. So this is an interesting one, and I think this kind of goes into the first question to answer is are you a Paul fan? Because if it's like any sport, if you're a fan of a player or a team and they're the ones doing the dominating, then it's already exciting because you're enjoying seeing that person succeed. And in our case, yeah, we have a little bit of bias when Paul wins. We like when Paul wins.
But is that
so
to a certain degree?
In my opinion, I don't care if Paul wins by 20 or if another player I like wins by 20 because that's exciting to me because I like that player. Okay, Nico Castro goes out there win by 20. I'm all for it. I'm a Nico fan. But if you're just a fan of disc golf as a sport and like you don't necessarily have biases to certain players or maybe you really like a lot of players, then yeah, I think not having a player, and it doesn't, Paul is just the guy who was kind of in those shoes these past few years and this
just
year.
A player in general dominating.
It used to be Ken Climo, but like a person. And
it was Ricky for a year or two as well.
And it's kind of Paige in the women's game right now. But a player who has the Paul Macbeth effect, it was the Tiger Woods effect is what it kind of originally was. Yes, if you're not, unless you like really like that player, I can understand why it might turn you away from the game because you are watching it for the suspense of the finish, not just to see a certain person succeed.
See, I'm obviously about as big a Paul fan as you can get, okay? But at the same time, I think I'm more prone to watch the coverage of this event than I am if Paul won by 20. If Paul's up by 15 and it's not coming down to the wire, I'll watch the score.
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting down and watching live coverage.
Okay.
And it's the same thing.
I might not watch live coverage. I might watch it afterwards.
I'm not even watching post. If it's a runaway, unless Paul does something criminal like 16 or 17
That's the thing.
under.
I like seeing really good disc golf.
Yes.
So when guys are playing and
But I would rather see, so my ideal tournament, being biased,
Here we go.
my ideal tournament is Paul and Ricky battling it out and it coming down like the last putt.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would want Paul to win in that situation because I'm a Paul fan, but regardless, it's the same thing like if I'm watching a Duke UNC game, right?
You don't want to see...
I don't want to see Duke.
That's a lie.
I love the result, but I don't want to watch it.
Yes, you do. You want to watch Duke win by 30, and then you want to be able to rub it in my face.
I want to rub it in
day.
your face, but I don't like. What would you enjoy more?
I would enjoy texting you as Carolina goes up by 20. Then
you would
30,
enjoy that more than Duke missing a free throw off the front rim, catching it, throwing it up, catching it for the alley-oop lay-in at the buzzer.
It, yeah.
Way better.
No.
Way better.
No.
You're there's no way you can sit here and honestly tell me.
I want to see your team get demoralized by my team.
Okay, maybe, but you would rather see that over Villanova hitting a buzzer beater for the NCAA title and just crushing every UNC fan's hopes and dreams. Like coming down to the buzzer and coming down to the final hole, way more exciting, no matter what side you're on. Like there's no way around that.
It's just how I am. I don't know.
Well, I think I hope in the disc golf world disagrees with you there.
Well, let me say this though. I do agree that if for the sake of disc golf as a sport, I would rather see it be close every time.
Okay, here.
And for the sake of like any sport, like college basketball, yeah. For the sake of, like college basketball doesn't need help being popular, but for the sake of the sport, yeah, you want close finishes.
Not the sake of the sport. We're going enjoyment, personal enjoyment. We're not even going full on crowd. You're sitting down right now, and you're watching one round of coverage.
Yeah, okay.
One round. Any coverage in history.
Is it live or this is what?
It doesn't matter. However you want to enjoy it. One tournament, you pick it. What is that tournament? I want like an actual tournament.
That's already happened?
Yeah.
So like my favorite, like...
Or you can make up like the result, but I just want to know for your enjoyment and you're sitting down, what are you watching?
Well, here's the thing. If it's already been recorded, then I know the result.
Okay, that's fine.
So like what I was saying about the UNC Duke thing, if I was going to go back and watch something that already happened, then yeah, I want to watch the close finish. If it's live, I don't want stress. So I want to see them blow them out.
To a certain degree, but if they're blowing them out, if it's a blowout and a runaway, like I might not watch the whole game.
I will.
But like I'm saying, if I'm watching the whole game, I'm watching it like this.
Yeah, it's stress-free.
And you want that?
Sometimes I need that.
If I'm watching a live sport,
I cheer for some bad teams sometimes, man. If any Baltimore Orioles fans are out there, you understand where I'm at right now.
If I'm picking one
first place.
If I'm picking one tournament, right, and I gotta watch it live, and I don't know the results, I'm going like 2014 Worlds.
I was about to say the same thing because I already know what happened.
No, you don't know the result. You have to watch a tournament, and it's gonna come down to the wire. Like enjoyment wise, I'm gonna get way more enjoyment out of watching that World Championship go 7 holes deep into a playoff between.
So you're basically pitching a scenario where I have to erase my memory and then pick an event, and I can either pick one where I know it's. But like, how does this work?
I'm just saying, what would you enjoy more if you're sitting there watching it?
If I don't know what's going to happen, I would rather see my favorite player on cruise control just dominating.
Why?
Because then they're like, I just love that. Like they're the best in the game. They're destroying the course, and I'm just like sitting there taking it in.
We're so different. Because that, like, I don't mind watching it.
Okay, and here's another thing. Once it's over, like, yeah, I definitely enjoyed seeing him sink the putt for the win in the world title in the playoff after.
Yeah.
Once it's over.
Yeah.
But we're talking about during. During, I don't want the stress.
What are you more glued to the screen during?
Okay, well, that's not what we were asking.
But I'm just saying there's...
Yeah, obviously, like...
the good of disc golf, for the good of you watching...
I said for the good of disc golf.
But for the good of you, like, enjoy... Maybe enjoyment's not the word.
The wrong word.
But like, if you're talking about glued on the screen, you're not moving.
Okay, getting my attention, yeah, the close one, obviously.
So why would you ever pick the runaway?
Because it's not as stressful. I just said that.
But like, to me, I would never choose it. Like I would.
I'm a simple man.
It just makes no sense to me. Like, so to me, my ideal situation is like this tournament just happened. You know, honestly, I don't want to replace any players. You just throw Paul into that mix. Because I love Eagle, Chris, Ricky, Kevin, Conrad, Heimberg, Ham is Nico.
All right.
I just went down way too far. But all those players, like, any one of them wins, I'm okay with.
I'm not.
Who?
Huh? Am I?
Who? You can't say you're not okay with someone winning.
They're not. There are some players I definitely don't want to see win over others.
I mean, I guess over others. Like, Eagle winning, if I'm watching a tournament.
If I'm looking at that top 10 right now, then Paul, Nico, Heimberg, Conrad, those are the ones I'd want to see win the most. The rest of them, like Kevin Jones, I'd be all right with. Like, I don't mind those other players. Here's the thing, too. I was never, like, I respect Ricky as an athlete, but, like, when he was dueling out Paul, and I was such a big Paul fan when I was, like, first following disc golf, I didn't like Ricky. Only because I didn't have a reason to not like him.
But that's so good for disc golf.
I'm not saying it's not
I know.
good for disc golf. I agree.
I wasn't saying that you disagree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's what disc golf
I want more rivalries.
We need rivalries. Like, you have to thrive on it.
To start talking trash. I need to see Nico Castro hop into those, like, Pro Tour.
You want to talk about some trash.
He needs to hop into those, like, Pro Tour interviews and just start calling out players, like, by name.
Nico, in a Pro Tour interview, called out all the comments. That was, I loved that.
Nico.
I loved that.
No, the Pro Tour.
And he said the keyboard warriors need to just, like, they'll never be good at disc golf. They'll never, like, I loved it.
He's good at
like, that's the type of stuff that we need articles written on. We need deeper interviews. We need, like, that's a storyline.
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't there a headline on Ultiroll the next day? Nico Locastro calls out all disc golf fans.
See, that's what I'm saying. He would have really got attention if he had, like, said Greg Barsby's breath stinks or something. Like, I want direct call outs. It doesn't happen, like, super often in sports. Every once in a while. I mean, I want it on social media too.
But I don't even think it comes from a player. Like,
because I want to see a card get announced and be like, oh, that guy and that guy are on the same card. They can't stand each other. Like, that's about to be.
So, what sport does that happen in other than UFC?
Oh, there's, like, team rivalries.
Yeah, but, like, who
in golf? There were players who did not like each other very much. Tiger and Phil, they're friends now, but back in the day,
someone not like Phil?
They did not like each other at all.
The more I watch Phil, the more I love the guy.
There's a reason Phil Mickelson was never in any of the Tiger Woods video games, because Tiger
funny.
And Tiger really didn't. I think it was like one of their caddies, like Phil's caddy, did not like Tiger either. But like
but I just think stuff like that, we need to focus on it. Whoever's like, we need to find rivalries and we need to exploit it.
Well, sure,
and milk it for all it's worth.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Let's create a rivalry right now. Kevin Jones hates James Conrad.
He can never.
No, they probably love each other. They're both too nice of a guys. I just picked the two guys right next to each other. But I mean,
I know there's guys out there that can't stand Nico.
But like, for instance, the Duke UNC rivalry, which first off, best rivalry in sports, period.
Easily.
There's no way Duke versus UNC is the best rivalry. But I don't think it was players that created that. Mm-mm. It was just their location being close, which that's not going to happen in golf. But it was media and fan hype.
Yeah,
we've got to beat. So I think that's what needs to be happening. Is the media doesn't need to pit these players against each other, but it needs to be like a so and so versus Nico versus Calvin Heimberg. Okay, maybe Heimberg's not a great person put in a rivalry because maybe he is a filthy trash talker and we don't know it.
Dude, Heimberg, he's got some secrets, man, for sure. That guy's mysterious.
He is.
I like Calvin Heimberg.
I like him a lot. Maybe that's an issue. Maybe I like players too much.
I think disc golf players are just not like very outspoken. I think
those Pro Tour interviews are amazing. They need to be free. And my reasoning behind it is imagine because some people are going to hear what I just said about Nico's interview and they've never seen it. But like imagine if Nico's interview was cut up into clips and then released on YouTube. And there's one YouTube of Nico talking trash. That's going to, in a certain degree, divide the fan base. But that's a great thing. It doesn't divide it in like non-disc golf likers. It's dividing against Nico and for Nico, and both are watching Nico. Mm-hmm. So now you put Nico on a card, you're going to have the Nico haters and the Nico lovers both watching, just like LeBron, like the Warriors.
Exactly.
Like, that's what's going to happen. And so that's the same thing with, there's people out there that probably hate Paul. There's people out there, when Paul and Ricky were battling it out back and forth, that's what was happening, is you were watching just as much to see Paul win as you were to watch Ricky lose, to a certain degree. Yeah. Now, I don't think Paul and Ricky, they're a great rivalry play-wise, but both of them are too nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was never really like...
There was never going to be...
They didn't like dislike
If there was bad blood, you would have never seen it.
Yeah.
Because they're too nice and too class acts.
Disc golf, man, disc golf has a lot of like courteous players. Like, I will say, like, I mean...
That's one thing that I love about disc golf, but I hate about disc golf.
Yeah, we need some personalities, man.
I love it about disc golf because, when I come to any tournament and any pro and anything, everyone's nice. I've met maybe 2 mean disc golfers in my life, and to be honest with you, they're not pros. I don't even know who they are.
I think it's just like a sport that kind of creates, like, they're kind of like, I feel like people that get into disc golf are normally like more like quiet, reserved people, it seems like, because that's how they kind of find disc golf, because they can kind of be out on their own. And like, no, we need some like wild childs out there. Like, I want people.
So maybe that is Nikos' role in the sport. Nikos been dominant, in the past. 2012, he was like the number 1 player in the world. Shoestrings documentary.
He's still very relevant. He's having a good
season.
No,
he's still relevant. But I'm saying, as far as like, maybe this is Nikos' new role he can adapt into, is he's now the Conor McGregor of disc golf.
Don't throw a chair through a bus,
Okay, don't go that far.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what that looks like for Nico. But like, if there was that and we could market that, because I don't give 2 rips about MMA, but I'll watch the interviews and stuff because they're amazing.
They're
and
crazy.
Then there's certain fights that because I watch that interview,
I
have to watch the fight.
Because somebody's going to get embarrassed.
Yeah. We need that.
I know.
Because imagine how many people we could bring from outside the sport if you have, like, if that Nico clip about people just talking crap, if that was free and that was published all over the place, first off.
Yeah.
That's drawing attention. Secondly, if Nico came out and said something about a specific player, like you said, like Greg Barsby has bad breath. Go with that.
All right. Bad example.
A horrible example. But you know what I mean? If he's talking smack, like they know their card they're on, and he's like, oh man, I can't wait to take it to whoever and show him what he said about my mom last week was wrong. I don't know. Like stuff like that where there's a storyline. There's something that you're following. You're on the edge of your seat, not because of the play, not because of anything other than watching these 2 players.
Yeah.
Or even a whole card. Whatever it is. We need that.
We need something.
Who's making it?
I might have to.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think we can rely on players.
I'm going to start just leaking fake tweets and just try to, like, spontaneously generate drama in the disc golf universe.
Well, I'm saying, like, if I look at this list here, all right, I'm looking at the players. The only player that I could legitimately see taking that role on is Nico.
We just got to convince one of these young players.
If Nico came after anyone, I feel like none of them would come back.
No, we got to convince somebody, one of these young guys. Anthony Barella, he came in 10th. He tied Paul this past weekend. We just got to, like, he's still young. We got to, like, convince him to, like, get an attitude. Like, listen, you want to be marketable? Just start getting fired up at everything.
That would be amazing for the sport. I just think that would be so cool.
I think you know what? Like, I think all it takes is, like, some really, like, arrogant players, too. Like, I want to see some...
You need players that people hate.
Yeah, I want to see some guys that, like, think they're the best. And actually are good enough to sometimes win.
And that's the thing. I think that's the thing that people don't get about Nico, is by hating Nico, you're doing just as much for Nico as you are loving him, to a certain degree.
Keep him relevant. Exactly.
Yeah. The more Nico's name's on people's lips, the more relevant he is. And, that's going to be something that, in a certain degree, grows the sport. In a roundabout way.
Yeah, I mean, hate the player, not the game, as long as you're not like angry at disc golf because of the player, that's fine.
Yeah, but I do think the way that happens is the Disc Golf Network's interviews. And to me, the Disc Golf Network is creating some insane content. Yeah. But more of it needs to be free. They need to be a little bit more strategic in my eyes as to what's behind the paywall and what's not. Because you have to make what's behind the paywall worth my $8.99 a month or whatever it is, unless I'm a PDGA member, then $5 a month. You got to make what's behind the paywall worth that, but then make all this other content drawing people to it. So maybe you have the full interview of Nico, and then you just cut out the little clips, the most interesting clips, drop them, and you're like, you want to see the full interview behind the paywall.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Something where you're drawing so much viewership and you're drawing so much attention to the sport, because if you see a guy talking smack and talking big and being arrogant, it doesn't matter what sport it is. I would watch a cornhole player like trash talk someone I've never heard of, just because trash talk is engaging. It's fun.
Yeah.
And so
we just need personalities. That's all we need.
We need personalities, and we need people pushing those personalities to the front instead of silencing them to a certain degree. Now, we did do the podcast topic on does Nico need to dial it back? And so I want to clear the air on some of it, because comments I think were a little confused. So Nico needs to dial back the stuff that's disrupting other people. like screaming curse words and stuff like that
Sure.
loud
Yeah.
on a course. Dial that back. But the rest of it, of like the passion side, freaking out over a missed putt to yourself, or like being animated on a course,
It's entertainment.
keep that, and other players adapt that to a certain degree. There's a line where you might cross it, and Nico's always going to be tiptoeing that line, and that's what makes him such a polarizing figure. But the more I think about it, the more I think you're right in saying, like, that's what we need.
It's true.
All right. Well, we weren't expecting to go down that one. And so as we wrap up the podcast here, we have one final topic that we might get a little bit heated on again, which is the purse.
Let me tell you guys, I have never seen such an atrocity. Like, this is an injustice, the purse. I asked Hunter what the purse was, and he told me it was $56,000.
$56,450.
And I was like, wow, like that's a pretty good purse. All right, that's good job, Pro Tour. We got some money together. And then I was like, okay, so how much did the winner take? $3,776. That's bad. That's really bad.
Now, one thing I want to point out
That's so bad.
is this is the total pro purse. So that does include the women.
I'm about to look at their payouts.
Women, the winner got $2,000. Paige got $2,000.
Their breakdown was almost better. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line
Their
really...
breakdown was better.
The distribution of the pot is one thing. It's awful when literally between 6th placed and the tie for 10th, like there's like a couple $100 difference in their winnings. Like there's just no disparity there. I mean, I want to see if we have a $56,000 pot, like I want the winner to take home 5 figures.
So you're saying $10,000.
I want him to win $10,000. We paid out 55. I say we. I didn't do anything. They paid out 55 players.
Well, that's 38% of the field.
30. That's too much. I think 20% of the field is probably a little bit better.
So I can already hear people, and
Yeah.
part of me's on their side a little bit on this. A small part of me, because
Okay.
I think I have a solution that I'm going to propose, but I can already hear people saying, well, if we cut it to 20%, then what about people trying to survive on tour? You're going to make it where we don't have as many touring pros, and then the purse is smaller because we don't have many touring pros. That's the argument behind it. That's the counter argument.
Okay, so here is the argument to that. Okay, in order to get our money in the purses should not be as dependent on registration. Okay,
but right now it is.
Okay, but here's how do we get more people interested? It's like a long train, so stay with me.
Okay.
So how do we get money? Where else do we get our money from the purse? We get it from sponsors, right? Added cash. Okay, so how do we get that? We have to have an enticing product. How do we have an enticing product? Better golf. More people will watch it, and there'll be more audience if it's better golf. How do we have better golf if it's more cutthroat? Okay, which means less players get paid, so you have to finish higher to get paid. I mean, you could literally be a journeyman, and you could just say, I'm just going to come top 20, top 30, top 55, and I'm going to make my money back at least and kind of just chip away. I want it to be like more difficult to tour.
So, I mean, I agree with you.
At the pro tour level we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like this is the highest level of the sport.
To me, the pro tour, in my eyes, should not adhere to the PDGA payout standards.
Right.
The pro tour should have their own payout standards and run with that. Because I think that the pro tour, we've talked about this before, it needs to be a little bit more of an elite tour.
I agree.
There's players, let's look at the lowest rated player in the field this week was 905 rated.
That's not it.
Why is he playing in the pro tour? And I've looked at this before, right? Because I can already, I know people's...
Hey, you just said rating, by the way.
Well, yeah, I had to look at that. Ouch. But I know people are saying like that player at the bottom of the field. I'm gonna just go with who came in last. Joshua. I'm not gonna say his last name.
Okay.
Unless if someone wants to look up his last name, they can search him. That way, I don't defame him on podcasts. But okay, so people are saying like him through 100th place, whatever it is, they're all increasing the purse, so they're increasing the payout. But realistically, from what I've looked at, that is not really that true, because the less people in the field is the less people you have to pay out.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
So really, the more people that are down low, it's making a very marginal change to the top.
Yeah.
It's making a bigger change to last cash. and it's just lowering where that last cash has to be. So realistically, if we cut the field, right? If we cut the field to like 125, the payout shouldn't, in theory, change amongst the top 5 or 6 players, which is where the money should be focused on. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to win a tournament. You're not trying to come in 30th and survive on tour. I don't think any player that's on tour is looking at 30th and saying, yeah, if I can just stay here, make a few $100 a week, I'm golden.
Yeah.
Those players probably shouldn't be on tour. If they're like okay with just being in 30th place over and over, what are they doing for our sport? Nothing. Some of those players are up and comers. I get that. And so some of those players that are coming in 30th right now, a few years from now, might be coming in first.
Yeah.
But some of the players that historically have been coming, and we probably don't even know their names, that's my point, have historically been coming in like 30th to 40th to 50th place over and over and over.
You can build your rep, I guess, even as an up-and-comer, though, like you can build your rep without being on the most elite tour. That's
the thing, is right now, the most elite tour is up to your perception. No one's telling us what the most elite tour is.
Yeah.
Because if the national tour is going on right now, the Pro Tour versus the national tour, it's up to your opinion as to which one's more elite. The Pro Tour, in my opinion, is way more, but it's up to a player and a viewer's opinion. Because there's no one telling us, like, this is the Pro Tour, this is the highest. And I think that's what's holding us back to a certain degree in getting sponsors is if I'm Nike looking in at this and I'm trying to pour money in and I see Paul McBeth's playing at a national tour and Paul McBeth's playing at a Pro Tour and I'm an outside.
Yeah, what's the big one?
Yeah, which one? And they're both paying out about the same players are at both. Which tour am I investing in?
Yeah.
And then if Nike makes the wrong decision in my eyes and invests in the national tour, which I don't think they would do. I think the Pro Tour is pretty clear cut right now. But if they invested in the national tour, which would still be huge for the sport, that would also set us back a little bit because the Pro Tour is making strides towards being that elite tour. Yeah. But if
it would tighten up that race a bit.
To me, what needs to happen in 2021, the national tour needs to go away. It needs to become, those events need to be adopted into the Pro Tour, and any event that doesn't fit the Pro Tour schedule needs to be adopted into the Pro Tour Silver Series. The Silver Series needs to become what you have to play to qualify for the Pro Tour.
If you don't have your card, you're saying.
That's how you get your Pro Tour card, is your Silver Series. You take the top 100 whatever players in the Pro Tour standings from this year.
Give them a card.
Give them a card. That's next year's touring pros.
Yeah.
If you're a touring pro, you're more than welcome to go play a Silver Series event if you want to cash 40% deep. You're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
But if you're playing a Pro Tour event, you're guaranteed if you win, they're getting 10K plus. If you come in second, you're getting like 5 to 8 grand. There's going to be big drop-offs. And then if you come in last cash at 143 players, we're talking about like 30th place, 40th place.
Yeah.
Because you're the top of the top. You're not there to, diddly-daddle around, whatever that word is, and finish in 50th place or 40th place and just grind it out on tour.
You just have to.
That's not what the tour's for.
They just got to, they have to adopt that attitude of like, this is the best of the best, and like, there's no slacking. If you want to be competitive on this tour, if you want to make money, you got to be winning.
Yeah.
And if you're going to win, you got to be the best of the best.
And that's where, the players that are on that cusp that are trying to break through, you go to the Silver Series. You try to break through in the Silver Series because those events are going to pay out like what we're seeing these events paying out. Yes, the purse won't be as high, but if the purse, with the percentages we're looking at here, if the purse was down to 40,000, Eagle's probably taking home like $2,900 or $3,000 still. Yeah. Because he's not taking that big of a percentage. So his number's not drastically dropping. So like, what are we really looking at as far as like added cash goes to? Because all it's doing is the lower it gets, the fatter that payout is percentage wise of the purse for where they finished.
Yeah. The thing is, you have to look at disc golf and not think about how many players can we get into an event, but how many eyes can we get on the event.
Yeah.
Okay. Audience is what drives income, not players. Okay, we want the best players, and we can get the best players, but we want audience, and getting audience means making the product the best it can be. That's where the focus needs to be.
Yeah, and I think that also creates more storylines and more drama. I think one thing that people aren't going to like is that is a lot like golf. But to me, it's not about being like golf. It's about saying, this is working for golf, so let's make this work for disc golf. Because like...
Or try it, because disc golf is so young. We can try stuff and then just say that didn't work. If it
I
didn't
mean,
work.
to me, having a defined tour that is a marketable product, you can sell the whole tour. You can not sell the tour, but as
The naming rights.
Yeah, as a sponsored product, you can sell the whole tour. You can sell each individual event. You can guarantee, hey, this is the top 125 players will be at each of these events, period.
Yeah.
If they're a touring pro, this is their schedule. That doesn't even exist. Every year we're wondering, what's Paul playing? What's Ricky playing? What's this player playing?
I have to imagine too that the Pro Tour, if it became the premier tour in disc golf, that the viewership has to be getting to the point where they can find a pretty big company.
We're getting 17,000 live concurrent viewers when
each
Paul's
event.
not on a card.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If we can bring these numbers to like a big company, I mean, I would think they could sell naming rights like the Pro Tour presented by whoever. Like,
well, that's the
for
thing.
Big money.
We need to. I was talking to I believe it was Sam Doyle, and he does a lot with marketing, and he brought up a great point. We need to stop marketing individual events and market the tour.
Whole tour.
Because if you go to a sponsor right now and we're saying, hey, if you want to sponsor the Great Lakes Open, you're going to get 60,000 views.
No, we want
on this live
all
coverage.
the views for the whole thing.
Exactly. Versus, hey, if you sponsor the Pro Tour, we're looking at like 1 million views.
Yeah, I feel like they would
That's like it's a big company's jumping on that. 1 million views, in untouched market, so you're gonna have it way cheaper than 1 million views in any other sport.
I feel like if they take that approach, like, I mean, I feel like there's a potential for big money there to where we see like if they're able to throw that into purses then, or even back into their own production, like.
To me, this isn't a Pro Tour decision though.
No.
Because I think this is what the Pro Tour wants to do. Just from the outside looking in, seeing them create this Silver Series, seeing the way they're rebranding the tour, seeing the steps they're taking, I think that what I'm saying right now and what you're agreeing with and what we've said multiple times, I think we're on the same wavelength as the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
I think the question mark, and to be honest with you, something holding disc golf back a little bit, is the PDGA right now. It's not the PDGA on a A tier, B tier, C tier level. They're doing a ton growing the sport, and that should be appreciated and welcomed and promoted. The PDGA is killing it on that side. But I think the PDGA is holding it back on trying to hold on to this elite series that hopefully they canceled it because of COVID this year. Hopefully that was it.
We would hope so.
And I think what they had planned, just hand that to Jeff Springs and say, this is yours. Go kill it.
It's tough to like think in terms of like taking a step back like that, especially when the PDGA is so big, but you just have to do it for the better of the sport.
Well, that's what's hard too, is the national tour has more history.
Yeah.
So we've talked about history, and we've talked about like stuff like that, like the Hall of Fame Classic. Some of these events, which the Hall of Fame Classic wasn't going to happen this year. So, I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But anyways, some of these events do have more history. So that's why I think it's important to keep them. But I think it's important to restructure them into what's going to grow the sport the most. And having one tour, I think, is crucial because it's confusing. That's all it is. Especially when we had 3 tours at one point. When we had the National Tour, the Pro Tour, and the World Tour.
That was a mess.
What are we doing?
Yeah, that's a mess.
Like, what are we thinking with that? Because
it's just people, they get these ideas, they create these tours, and they want their tour to be the latest, greatest, biggest tour. That's all it is. It's just they want to be the biggest.
And that's the thing is, at some point, we have to stop being selfish and stop saying, I want my tour to be the tour, and put all our eggs in one basket and grow the sport. Because
that'll, I mean, as a side effect, that will grow everybody, aside from having their own tours. The PDGA can be a governing body and grow because they decide to take that step.
Yes. And I think that's what needs to happen.
We'll see what happens with the upcoming election.
We'll see if it does happen. Yeah, the board of directors election, I think, could actually be big in this.
Could shake things up, yeah.
This was the first time that they've had, I think there were 17 different people, which first off, only like 20% of current PDGA members voted. What are we doing?
I voted.
Will
Shoestrick. Come on.
But that's something that I think we're kind of like, this is how we can have our voices heard in the PDGA, is put people that agree with us and agree with our ideals into the positions to make these changes. Because stuff like this is like, that to me is one of the biggest things holding disc golf back. A lot of times we talk about stuff that needs to change with disc golf and whatever. Disc golf's not broken. No. It's just that where we are right now versus where we could be is drastic. And so I'm looking at it, to me, it's painfully obvious that this is going to happen one day. Mm-hmm. And only thing that's holding it back is like just 1 or 2 people are standing in the way saying, no, this national tour needs to happen. or whatever it may be, there's a few decisions that have to happen, and they're going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
Players are eventually going to see more money at the Pro Tour. They're going to care less about the National Tour. This is already happening to a certain degree.
Oh, yeah.
People are going to start caring less about the National Tour, and the National Tour is probably going to become obsolete or become a lower level tour. So what are we trying to hold on here?
Tough to say.
We just need to go ahead, nip it in the bud, have the Pro Tour absorb the National Tour, take the good events, run them as Pro Tours, and take the bad events, run it as not bad events, but lower tier events, run them as Silver Series, and just bite the bullet. Do it. That's way more marketable. That makes way more sense. And that, to me, is something that is huge that could grow the sport if we just did it.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for this week's podcast. Half of those tangents we weren't planning on going on, but, that's why we call it grip lock. If you've always wondered, you have a fairway right in front of you, and then you grip lock it, and next thing you know, you're 100 feet to Timbuktu on the right side. And that's grip locked for you. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out our Clips channel. You might be watching this on that, actually. Over on YouTube, you can find highlights and more consumable snippets from our podcast. And you can also check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it if you left us a review. That helps us a lot with the rankings and all of that stuff. And it lets us know that you're enjoying the podcast, or maybe you're not enjoying the podcast.
Sure.
Either way, leave us a review so we can read it and stay up to date on how to improve or how to stay the same. And if you haven't subscribed on our main YouTube, we did just drop the Battle for Bedford coverage a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Little disclaimer. You might be a little confused of who you're looking at, but we're not Jomez. So
believe it or not,
don't be expecting Jomez quality. Basically, we put on an event. We put on an event that drew in Paul and Brody, and when you have an event that draws in those names, people are going to want to watch it. And so we're like, hey, we'll just put 2 cameras out there and record the event for some free coverage. Let people watch some disc golf. Why not? And so that's kind of how it went down, and that's why the coverage is out there. But I do understand the quality wasn't up to par with the big boys.
Yeah.
But, again, we're not trying to be Jomez.
It was a side project. Hunter and I obviously were trying to put on an event, and then we also decided, hey, let's get it on camera.
Yeah.
So you guys can see what happens, see the course. And, obviously we don't have the equipment, the time, the money.
Yeah.
Of like Jomez.
All of the criticism's valid. Like, I read it, and I'm like, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but, like, the fact of the matter is, our YouTube channel, if we're anything on YouTube, we're vloggers that vlog our rounds and throw in. And in the future,
we do want to make more of an emphasis on if we do coverage like that again, maybe we'll
we'll probably hire someone out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think
it's a learning experience.
To me, this was like a proof of concept. Is the interest there for our tournaments to be covered? And now that we see the interest is there and we can gauge it as a marketable product, in the future we can say, hey, it's worth flying X, Y, or Z channel out here to cover our tournament. So we appreciate the feedback. Just wanted to kind of throw that in at the end here because the comments were getting to me.
You hurt this guy's feelings. I hope you're happy.
Thanks for listening, guys, and we will talk to you next week.